Yeah.
Dearly beloved,
Oh, yeah.
we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life.
I'm Andy Mills.
And I'm Matt Bull.
This is Reflector.
There's something else. The afterworld.
I'm in the zone, baby. Zoned out. Straight up. I just wanna perform, baby.
Chapter 3, Duck.
As of 2022, there's been a staggering number of well-known or established rappers who've been murdered.
Last year, journalist Van Lathan teamed up with rapper 50 Cent.
For 50 Cent, why did you feel like you had to make this show?
We're not attempting to solve a crime that's been solved.
I got you. We're asking questions and trying to get answers.
To make a documentary series called Hip Hop Homicides.
I'm not interested in a kumbaya. Somebody died. It's just too late.
This is Hip Hop Homicides.
The show is actually really remarkable in the way that it digs deep into this increasingly blurry line between the rap battles in some corners of hip-hop and real street violence. Matt and I sat down with Lathan to talk about how he understands this debate about rap on trial in the broader context of this shift.
I've actually talked to 50 Cent about this in Hip Hop Homicides. I had a long conversation both on camera and off camera with 50. And somebody that has that type of reputation even still doesn't understand some of the stuff that he sees in hip hop now.
Wow, and 50 is somebody who is about as authentic as it comes. I mean, he was famously a drug dealer.
Right, he was shot too, right?
Like 9 times.
Yeah.
Right. He doesn't get it. Because his whole thing is like, the purpose is to rap, and get away from it. And separate yourself from it. Move past it. The purpose isn't to be rapping, having an actual rap career, and still be going on drills, and still be putting yourself in a position to where you're going to shoot at people and get shot at. If I was to say that there's a difference in some of what I see, particularly from drill and some other forms of music that are prevalent or alive in hip-hop right now, is that there is a mutation of the authenticity to where we don't want to hear you talk about somebody that got killed unless you've actually killed people. And by the way, we want to hear about who you've actually killed. And we want to be able to look throughout social media and be like, so-and-so was actually here and they actually killed this person and this person is actually dead and this is the guy who did it.
Because of social media, everyone's involved now.
Right.
This is 50 Cent from Hip Hop Homicides.
Because those kids in Middle America
They're going up off that energy.
are clicking the button to look.
Yeah.
And are fascinated with these kids because they're living on a side so wild compared to the conservative lifestyle that they have.
That is new. Now, I'm sure that there are people that are going to be able to pull up other instances of people that have gone back and forth, and then somebody end up dead. Oh, you know, this person did this and this. Yeah, I get it. But I'm talking about specifically right now, having songs filled with the names of dead people that actually were killed by your side, by either you or your side of whatever this war is. This never-ending, cyclical, actual, real violence that is more being chronicled in the music than discussed. There's a difference between a novel and an encyclopedia.
Could you just tell us the story of Chicago rapper FBG Duck? Because I think it embodies some of the things that you're talking about here.
Yeah, so in Hip Hop Homicides, we covered a guy named FBG Duck. And shout out to everybody when I was in Chicago, everyone out there that really let us in and told us a lot of stories about these young men and like what it is they're going through. But FBG Duck was a rising hip-hop star from Chicago that was embroiled in what is essentially a gang war between two different factions.
Here in Chicago, two of the most notorious gangs are the Black Disciples from O Block and their rivals, the Gangster Disciples from Tukaville. Firm numbers are hard to come by because a majority of these cases are never solved by the police. But in Chicago, just since the year 2019, around 3,000 people have been killed in gang violence. and a lot of it is contained to just a few square miles of the city.
And these two sides are very close to one another. We're talking 4 or 5 blocks, like right up the street.
And this rapper, FBG Duck, who Van profiled, was from Tukaville.
They don't belong here. They just playing with the damn game. Niggas talking out they mouth retarded. Please don't get it started like we won't shoot up the party.
And starting around 2017,
Duck was seeing success.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm actually happy as hell. That's why I'm steady smiling. I'm proud of myself. You feel me?
this is audio from an interview with Duck after he'd signed a big contract with Sony Music Entertainment.
The rumor was that you signed for $1.7 million. That's the rumor.
I got a fat-ass check, a real big-ass check. And it's not 1.7 million. It's more than that.
Duck, whose real name was Carlton Weekly, was born in 1993 and grew up largely at his grandma's house because his father had been incarcerated for his entire life and his mother struggled with drugs. This is a clip of her speaking with Van for his series.
Growing up in a 3-bedroom apartment with 17 people, it was kind of hard. And I just know my son, he saw his mama struggle. He saw me losing his sister and then go back to drugs. He saw me lose his brother and then go back to drugs. He made everything at arm's reach for me. I ain't pay a bill.
After my money cleared, my mama was the first motherfucker on my line. So that was, you know how that shit go. You gotta make sure you hit OG. Everybody should want to take care of their mama. Like, you wouldn't even be able to do this shit if she ain't had sex with your daddy and had you, motherfucker.
Much like Young Thug, Duck's older brother was shot and killed in street violence. And also like Young Thug, he was open about being part of his local gang from a very young age and wasn't shy about saying so on social media.
A lot of these niggas that's talking not even really out here in these streets for real. Like, they is not out here. Niggas not sliding on them ops for real. Niggas not sending them shots for real. That's why I don't take a lot of these niggas serious. I swear I don't. I don't take none of these niggas serious.
And yet, even though Duck was clearly active in Tukaville, Van says that when he was working on his series, he heard that some of this was exaggerated.
Everybody that you talk to about Duck, I spoke to his mother, I spoke to all of his friends, and when you would talk to people about Duck, they would tell you he was the strength of his mother. He was the strength of his brothers. He had lost so many brothers. But no one described him as a savage or a killer or a driller or someone who had gone out on behalf of his gang or his side or his section taking people's lives. He was a reputable member, don't get me wrong. But he wasn't one of the ones that you would hear about like that.
So while Duck, in his music and online, leaned hard into his well-earned authenticity.
You see what I'm saying? Like, this shit not no gimmick. If you own that for real, call me and say, Duck, we gonna kill you. We own that with you. Let me know that it's real so I can know to kill you the same night. You catch my drift? Don't come talking.
In some ways, he did try to use his music to almost tone down the temperature of this deadly rivalry between these two gangs.
This the realest shit I never wrote.
As Duck's career started to blossom, you start to see him take his music in some different ways.
First off, I want to tell y'all I'm my own man. You don't understand, then you didn't become a grown.
So he made a song called Chicago Legends.
I know I ain't the only nigga. Notice we lost a lot of Chicago legends. First, we gonna start off with JoJo.
It was ostensibly an olive branch.
Still a classic. Now we go talk about Pappy. I could vouch that young nigga was savage.
In the song, Duck name drops all of these local guys who were killed in this rivalry between the two gangs, and he honors them. And not just those who died on his side of the battle.
But I made this track to be fair. It's only right that I talk about both sides. So now we go talk about news. But I barely knew him like that.
The aim of that song was to show respect, reverence, and grace to people from all over Chicago who had died in this gang war that had been going on for a long time.
I ain't big rapping. Hey, look though, every motherfucking name I just said is a Chicago legend. No matter if he from this side, that side, that shit don't even matter. All bullshit aside.
The record drops, and there's backlash. There's backlash from people who do not want that.
What specifically do they not want?
They don't want it quashed. They don't want it squashed. They don't want a resolution.
Some people online liked this song and what Duck was trying to do, but the loudest voices, Van says, didn't just hate the song, but came after Duck personally. They called him a bitch. Some laughed at him, said it made him look weak. Even his friends distanced themselves from him.
They're not used to seeing someone show humanity and compassion to the other side. They're not used to that. It's not what they want. That's not what the music is based around. What the music is based around is who got killed, who died, revenge, and get back. He thought an evolution that had occurred that hadn't really occurred. And there was things that happened that made him decide, okay, I don't want to do that. Give the audience what it is that they want. So he made a song called Dead Bitches.
If we ever said it's up that bitch, I swear to God we mean it. We already in hell, bitch, since 12 we been demons. Ever since I signed the deal, all these bitches.
And Dead Bitches is one of the most flagrantly disrespectful songs in the history of Chicago drill.
Made Chicago legend, shit. That was just about business. Said I won't go this to dead.
Dead Bitches is essentially the antithesis of Chicago legends.
You want Lil' Bro in your gang way. I know you heard about Lil' Boo, yeah. They left his shit by a tire. Bullets was hitting him, he was singing like Mariah. Yeah, you heard about
Again, he name drops people that were killed on the street. Only this time,
he is calling them dead bitches.
I go to D-Thing, grave and take a piss on that shit. If Keita was alive, I'd make that bitch suck my dick.
These are real people who were killed.
Real people who were killed.
And Dead Bitches was a hit. It was far more successful than Chicago Legends, got millions of views online almost overnight. People who were dogging Duck before were now cheering him. And then, a month later,
one day in Chicago's Gold Coast, a crew of guys popped up on Duck and lit him up.
Lights, sirens, and crime scene tape taking over one of Chicago's most notable streets.
Carlton Weekly, who went by the rapper name FBG Duck, was gunned down in the city's Gold Coast while shopping.
Chicago police tell me that 4 men in 2 different vehicles came down Oak Street, stopped right here in the middle, and started firing.
Very rapid fire. There was no stop. It was very, very scary.
Partly because Duck was murdered in the middle of the day, right in the heart of Chicago's shopping district. The police investigation was far more intense than the usual gang-related killing.
A joint task force of law enforcement working together on this one.
5 alleged Chicago street gang members now facing federal charges in connection with the shooting death of a local rapper downtown. The charges announced today by the U.S. attorney, who says social media played a role in this case.
And just like in Young Thug's case, both social media.
The indictment alleges the 5 used social media to brag about their crimes as a way to
and song lyrics played a part in law enforcement's investigation and in the prosecution of Duck's killers.
We are going after gangs in this city. We are working together to hold gang members accountable for violence.
When you think about the entirety of that story, we could blame the lyrics or the music all we want, but we're talking about dysfunction in areas of American cities that run so deep that they are essentially war zones. And there is no truce in sight. Everybody's talking about who is going to figure out what is going on in Gaza. It seems like it's never going to end. You know what else seems like it's never going to end? The beef between O Block and 63rd. That seems like it's never going to end. And that seems like it's an increasingly high body count. It seems like it's an increasingly high tax that's being paid by the people that live there, by the young people that live there. And there are guys like Pastor Corey Brooks and other people like that are trying to figure this out. But that's a war to me that seems bloody and intractable and never ending. And the music is chronicling not somebody's musings on the world or how they look at the world put to a beat. It's an actual running tally of who's dying, and that is different. I challenge anyone who's been listening to hip hop for a long time to tell me when that's been. You might have talked about guys that have passed away before, but using the music as essentially a sports center to tally up body counts, people who are actually died and kidnapped and debased and degraded, disrespect dead people, that is new. That just came around.
Music used to have morals to the story. Folks that went to jail, sold dope, been shot, they rap, they telling you what happened, they telling you what they did wrong, they telling you how to get out and change your life.
This is hip-hop producer and MC 4 Eyes.
Originally born in Chicago on the west side, but I've lived in Atlanta, Georgia since 1999 and been well immersed in the music industry since then.
Ludacris, 4 Eyes.
My big break into the music industry was being featured on Ludacris' first 2 albums, Back for the First Time and Word of Mouth.
4 Eyes, 4 Eyes, what's this? 4 Eyes. Yo, I am going to blow up the earth with my Pew 36 explosive space modulator. Buddha be praised.
4 Eyes is what Van might call an old head in hip-hop.
So I wanted to ask you about the changes that you've seen in hip-hop, especially in street rap. And I'm curious about what role you think music itself is playing in this. And I know that for me, I grew up in a small town, and as a teenager, I was drawn to punk rock. And I think I was drawn to it in part because in its sound, in its ethos, in its lyrics, it resonated with me and with something that I was already feeling as this angsty teenager. But I also know that the more that I listened to this music, the more that I wanted to dress like the punks that I admired. Right? I already had kind of an anti-authority streak in me, but the more I listened to this music, the more that I wanted to embrace that as a kind of identity. And I sometimes wonder if there were things I would not have done were it not for the role of this music in my life, right? Like, would I have broken into an abandoned house and gotten arrested if not for punk music? And obviously I don't blame punk music. It's messy, but I just wonder, how do you understand that thing when it comes to violent street rap?
Hey man, everything you just said is known on a psychological level. It is understood the power and influence of music. So same way you was influenced by punk, I was influenced by MC Hammer, nigga. I had hammer pants. And I had a box haircut like Kid and Play, and I had patent leather shoes, and I had these rayon shirts. So I was influenced the same way you were, but what I'm being influenced by is dancing and partying because I have a suggestible mind as a teenager. Mm-hmm. So now when you change hammer pants to fucking oxycodone or motherfucking lean and to running up on the ops, the same influence is now different. But the influence is there. It's not going away. We're children. We're looking to discover ourselves. We're looking to find ourselves. But the tools now that we're getting to find ourselves are more detrimental to the longevity of our existence.
These kids are just as much prisoners of this lifestyle as anybody else. They're caught up in something and they're desensitized.
Van says that you cannot disconnect the music from the reality of life in these high crime neighborhoods. The music is in part a reflection of that reality. And when it's valorizing specific real-life crimes, it then also becomes a complicated part of a larger cycle that perpetuates that reality.
I think making it about the music enticing someone to do something, I think is really, in a lot of ways, the same argument we've been having since Tipper Gore and all of those people. I don't know if the music entices you to do anything, but I think it's important to talk about the music's role in desensitizing things, all of the stuff that they're seeing and the way that they talk, because it doesn't matter what it is. If enough people are talking about something that's dysfunctional, it'll become normalized.
When we talked to 4 Eyes, he told us that there are aspects of this change in street rap that are just the latest form of an evolution that's been around pretty much since hip-hop blew up and started making a lot of different people a lot of money, including people far away from these neighborhoods. And he says that that money has always created complicated incentives.
I grew up in what I perceive as the golden era of hip-hop, and I also watch it decay and wither. And I know we had involvement as participants, but I know that there was people on the other side helping to steer the sheep in the direction that would be most beneficial for their agenda. And I'm saying, there's still plenty KRS-Ones and Public Enemies or Talib Kweli's and De La Souls, but they're not getting the placement. That's why the music's not being made. You're telling me I'll make the happy shit and I'm not gonna get played? Okay, well, I'm finna go rap about shooting niggas. I'm finna go rap about selling drugs, doing drugs, fucking bitches. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
And you're talking about the record labels, right?
Damn right.
So you're saying that of all the different kinds of expressions of rap and hip-hop that exist, there's a interesting incentive relationship happening between artists and record labels, both of them hungry for money and success, and that if the kind of hip-hop and rap that wears the identity of the criminal, it's embracing the street violence.
Okay, so boom.
And you're saying if they see that's making money, then the record labels are looking for the artists to celebrate that, and then the artists who are looking to make money are saying, oh, so that's what the labels are going to pay for. And so everybody's hovering around it because there seems to be something about the celebration of this villainous character, to whatever degree it's authentic or not. That's what sells. So let's lean more and more into that.
You damn right. And now I'm finna throw my nigga under the bus. Ludacris, Christopher Brian Bridges. We grew up together. We started rapping together. I've known him since 5th grade. We played Little League Baseball together. This nigga is a straight A-B student. My mama told me that I need to be more like him growing up. Like, he did his homework, so I did my homework. When he moved away, my grades plummeted horribly because I was not, like, steel sharpened steel. Like, he's being smart, so I'm being smart. When my smart buddy left, nigga, I started doing dumb shit with my dumb folks. But the reality is Chris has always been honor roll, incredibly intelligent, genius, raised as right as you could raise a motherfucker. But that does not stop him from talking about having hoes, talking about his twin Glock 40s, and a series of things that he knew would help propel the music, especially from working in radio and knowing what was getting charted and getting played. So for somebody intelligent to look and see the direction of music and what's getting the love and the rotations and knowing, all right, to be successful, I need to create this. That's simple mathematics. But the reality is I've seen it firsthand, so I know that it's happened and happens all across the board. People are going to, oh, you mean I can get more attention if I show a titty? Oh, you mean I get more porn if I do anal? People are constantly pushing that line of what they will accept to do because of the success that is attached to it.
Van, Matt and I talked on the phone with the rapper Killer Mike for this story, and he pushed back on what you and others have been saying about this change happening in some corners of hip-hop and rap. And he essentially said that we need to understand these young guys today the same way as we understood the old guys, right? That they are embodying the persona of a mob boss, like a Scarface or a Don Corleone, and that people are drawn to these rappers the same way that we are drawn to Tony Soprano. And just like The Sopranos was based in part on real-life mob violence, some of this street rap is based on real violence. But at the end of the day, it is art, it is entertainment, it's more like professional wrestling than like real life. And when you watch the WWE, you don't call the cops on The Undertaker when he pulls out a chair and beats someone over the head with it, right? But it sounds like what you're saying is that, yes, that's how most of it used to be, but something important has changed. And you're essentially making the case that we need to adopt a new mindset, at least when it comes to this corner of street rap. Is that right?
Right. Let's take Death Row Records. Before Tupac signed to Death Row Records, Who was Death Row Records' biggest solo artist? Snoop.
Right.
Snoop dropped his debut album, and that motherfucker sold 800,000. 800,000 one week, then came back and did 800,000 the next week. Snoop was a phenomenon in music, like we don't think about it. Okay, Snoop was an East Side Crip, right? So he's from Long Beach, right? Goddamn Death Row offices sitting up there was Suge Knight. So it's not that these guys weren't actual gang members. They're very famously gang members.
Yeah. So what's changed?
Well, that's the point. Whatever was going on there, and obviously the gang politics in these two places are different, but whatever was going on there was enough structure to it to where Snoop and Suge weren't in there trying to kill each other, right? The WWE analogy is great. I would say, except for the fact that there's always been some violence and some incarceration that's going on with hip-hop, so sometimes people do call the police on The Undertaker. What's changed is that there has been an evolution in the music to where that slider on authenticity has been cranked. And this happened with everything, right? We used to, in 1993, geek out over Cinemax and what was going on after 11 o'clock on Cinemax.
Yeah, Skinemax.
Skinemax, right? Now, the sex that you see on it's real. The internet cuts right through all the playing and Basic Instinct and all of that stuff to someone being ejaculated on right there. You can see it whenever you want. Like, whatever you get ready. It's taken away the veil of this is movie sex. Now it's performances of real sex, which is what porn is. It's a performance, but it's a performance of real sex, right? And I'm saying that some of the hip-hop now that we're seeing is like that. It's a performance, but of real violence. Not of theoretical violence, not of the violence that they've seen. It's a performance of actual violence. And when you look at how these guys are getting killed, King Von got killed, Duck got killed, Mo 3 got killed. Like, these guys, part of this new school of guys, they are in actual real street beefs to where they pull up on each other or somebody from their hood pulls up on them and they drill them and they die. And the articulation of that in the music is new. The, hey, fuck this dude who got killed here, fuck his family, fuck him, spit on his grave, piss on his mama grave, piss on all of that, that's new. There was a little bit of it before, but now there's a whole genre of hip-hop that's based around it.
When we come back, what does all of this mean for Young Thug's RICO case and the larger debate about rap on trial? Stay with us.
Hello, this is Matt with Reflector, and this episode is sponsored by Ground News. Ground News is one of the most helpful tools that I use every day to navigate the echo chambers and media bias plaguing our world. Here's an example of what I mean. Back in January, pro-Palestinian protesters gathered outside the White House to call for a ceasefire.
Tense moments at the White House overnight. Pro-Palestinian protesters broke through a temporary gate.
The protest eventually became violent, and some White House staff nearby were evacuated.
Washington, D.C.'s police chief says things were thrown at cops. Riot police were trying to stop the crowd.
Now, when I came across the story on the Ground News app, they had done this great service where I could swipe between the headlines to see how different media outlets described the same story. So I would see NPR's headline, Pro-Palestinian demonstrators in D.C. march to demand ceasefire in Gaza. Next to The Messenger's headline, Pro-Palestinian protesters damage fence outside White House, forcing evacuation of nearby staff. Right next to The Blaze's headline, Palestinian supporters tried to breach White House fencing, rioters attack officers, staffers relocated, no arrests. Ground News helps me not just learn about a single news item, but also see that news in the context of the larger media world. Now, whether you're on the political left or on the political right, or like a lot of people these days, you don't really know where you fit in, we can all agree that it's hard to trust what you see in the news and on your phones and in your social media feeds. Ground News cares about this problem, and they're working to help. On top of showing different headlines, they offer blind spot reports to show you stories outside your bubble. They collect local reporting on the city or the town that you live in, and they rate news stories and outlets on their level of bias. I really think that if you like this podcast, you would like their mission. To go check them out, use the link ground.news/reflector. That's ground.news/reflector, and you'll get 40% off their unlimited access Vantage subscription. We appreciate what they're up to. We appreciate their support of this podcast. So go check them out and make sure you use our link, ground.news/reflector, so they know that we sent you. All right, now back to the show. Chapter 4, Damned If You Do, Damned If You Don't.
In the case of NWA versus the police department.
In 1998, just 4 years after the congressional hearings with Tipper Gore and Dee Snider,
Ice Cube, take the motherfucking stand.
a similar national conversation played out, directed at rap.
Fuck the police coming straight from the underground. A young nigga got it bad 'cause I'm brown.
And that focused largely on the acts NWA
Will swarm on any motherfucker in a blue uniform.
and 2 Live Crew.
Welcome to the fuck shop.
Both acts were accused of being obscene beyond the pale.
2 Live Crew went on trial in Fort Lauderdale, Florida on Tuesday, charged with singing obscene songs for paying adults during a nightclub performance last June.
And again, there was this national movement. There were parents groups. There was even a congressional hearing to address the links between this music and larger problems in our society.
The latest chapter in a growing national debate over where, in a democratic society, art ends and obscenity begins, and who should decide.
People say we're promoting gang violence. We're not promoting gang violence at all. It's like we're just telling it like it is. We're reporters. We're not doing nothing but making records that's real.
In some ways, this was the beginning of the rap on trial movement that is right now circling Young Thug in Atlanta. But many people involved in the world of contemporary street rap, like Van Lathan, say that trying to put what's happening in 2024 into the 1989 context is a mistake. So now comes the big question. What do you think about what's happening with Young Thug and more broadly, this conversation that's been growing around rap on trial? How does what you're saying fit in with that?
I think we have to be honest about it. Like doing the show and working with 50 and Mona, I would like to shout out Mona Scott Young as well. It changed me because there's a cost. There's a real cost here. We have to be honest about it because the crime here matters. If there was a rapper, and there's been talk of sexual assault in hip-hop in the past. We've seen rappers that have talked about that. And that's bad enough. That's disgusting. But if there was a rapper that was rapping about women that he or she sexually assaulted or children that they had hurt, and we knew that what they were saying was real, what would we do? Like, what would we do? It's just art? No one would say, hey, well, we shouldn't be able to use the raps of someone who is claiming to be a serial rapist to go catch them. You'd sound like a fucking idiot. I know what you're talking about. Like, if we actually think that this actually happened, first of all, why would you rap about it? But if you are going to rap about it, you got to be stopped. I look at it the same way. I think that there should be a high bar for this. And I think the bar doesn't start with the music. Mm-hmm. I don't want anybody going into somebody's music and using the music to indict somebody. I don't want that. But if actual people have been killed, young black people have been killed and are being killed, and you're dumb enough to go on an actual record and talk about what you did in the streets and it's real, I have zero problem with that. And let me tell you what changed for me. What changed for me was sitting down with 8 different mothers, was going to these neighborhoods, was talking to these people, was seeing the carnage that is left when one of these young men and women is killed and taken away from their family. Seeing people that died in 2004 and mama's still not over it. She kept his room the same. I interviewed guys on that show that were murdered before the show went to air, right? We can't let the game become this heartless, this brash, this debasing, this inhumane.
What Van and Four Eyes and many others say to the people who claim that what's happening today should be seen in light of what happened with Tipper Gore or with 2 Live Crew is that it's apples and oranges. And they point out that right now, there is no national movement trying to stop this cycle. There haven't been congressional hearings. There are no after-school specials. Instead, these records are making millions of dollars for artists and their labels, even as, in some ways, what's happening now is a version of what people were afraid of all those years ago.
So it is some criminals out here who happen to be rapping, and they're literally incriminating themselves on tape, on wax, on record.
And so are you worried at all about the use of rap lyrics in cases like Young Thug's or in these others around the country?
So on one hand, I want to defend, but then on the other hand, it's like stupid is as stupid does.
You know, well, when it comes to this tension, some people worry about the precedent that could be set and how this might create a chilling effect on artists, especially because of the dangers of having law enforcement move into the world of artistic interpretation. And, just for broader context, back in 1972, John Denver released his song Rocky Mountain High. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Familiar. A little familiar.
And a lot of radio stations banned the song from airplay because they said that it was glorifying smoking weed.
Mm-hmm.
And John Denver, he came out and said, no, I literally am talking about a high that you get when you're with your best friends and you go on a hike in the Rocky Mountains and the stars are so bright. You have misinterpreted my art. This is not about drugs. And I think that this speaks to the concerns that people have about government agents and prosecutors getting into the business of deciding what these lyrics really mean.
Yep.
And maybe if we go down this path, there won't be a 2 Live Crew.
100%.
There won't be an NWA, right? You don't get a classic song like Cop Killer. What do you say to that?
Okay, well, Cop Killer, Ice-T, he was definitely speaking out against police brutality, and that was him bucking the system, but he's not nowhere associated with the killing of a cop. There's no way to even reference it or link it to anything. It was just a matter of free speech at that point. There was no criminal. It was just free speech. The Rocky Mountain High thing was another free speech and a misinterpretation because Ice-T was saying what he was saying. The Rocky Mountain High dude, and I didn't know that story, that is a great depiction of how somebody can misinterpret what you're doing. They could criminalize your own efforts when none of that could be present at all. Sure, I understand how they could get that perspective, but when you ask them, that is not what was done. So then in Thug's case, I'm torn between there's certain pillars that we need to leave in place because they are the pillars that protect each individual. Once you tear down that pillar, then it could be a witch hunt for everybody. That's the thing about the Young Thug situation is if he can be prosecuted and attacked for his lyrics, fake, real, or whatever, that means everybody can and that means everybody will. You understand what I'm saying?
In the end, Four Eyes finds himself, like a lot of people, caught between competing values. On the one hand, he understands that this could open the door for law enforcement to incriminate innocent people. And on the other hand, when rappers like Young Thug or YSL brag about their crimes in their music, and only when caught claim that it's all just an act, they can be hard to take seriously.
It has such the weakest argument for defense. It's like, I want to help it and support it, but it's so, like, he's not given a lot to work with. And that's what makes it so fucked up on one sense, but at the same sense, we need to leave certain pillars alone or in place because they protect us all. Even if the nigga did do it.
It's complicated.
Then a mofo, sir. Yes, sir. Then a mofo.
So, Van, when it comes to Young Thug's case specifically, where do you fall on the prosecutor's use of lyrics in the courtroom?
So a murder case is made up of very specific things. So I would expect in a murder case or in a RICO case that there would be electronic evidence, there would be physical evidence, there would be testimony. You're not going to be able to convict anyone, I don't think, solely off what's in their rhymes. I don't think that's going to meet the burden of proof for a jury. But if you do have that evidence, and then you make a song bragging about somebody that you killed, I don't think that we shouldn't discuss that. And we should also have the discussion about why you're bragging about people you killed on records. And so I don't think that we're going to get to a point, or that we should get to a point, to where a DA can bring a case based upon what they heard in somebody's rhymes. Oh, this person rapped about doing this? Okay, that's enough. No, I don't think so. But I tell everybody out there right now, I talk to these people. If you don't think your songs, your social media posts, all of that stuff, what you upload, if you don't think the police are looking at that, you're an idiot. If you don't think the police are watching you brag about the crimes that you've committed on fucking Instagram and then recording it and then using it to further a case against you, sometimes when they don't even know who you are before you start bragging about it, you're dumb.
And if I understand you correctly, when it comes to this larger debate about rap on trial, you're saying that whatever we think of it, we just need to make sure that we're grappling with the fact that there is and has been a real change in this part of the music and in this part of the culture, and that should be a part of the conversation.
I mean, honestly, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to pretend like there's not a change.
Yeah.
But let me put it to you like this. What I would say is sometimes people are judging 2024 on a 1998 standard, and I don't think that moves the game forward. I don't think that moves the culture of the community forward. I don't understand why we're not evolving alongside some of the real issues and problems that exist in some of the music. And maybe if we take it more serious, maybe if there is some sort of consequence or potential consequence, that will stem the tide. But if Thug and them do go away, there's a part of that affects the people around them in a very specific way because they are the economic drivers of so many different people's lives, right? So at this point where we're here, we've already lost. We've already lost because if you take these guys who were able to actually make something of themselves and you put them away and you end that, that affects the community negatively, right? At the same time, if in fact there's been havoc being wreaked and lives have been taken and lost and there's no consequence for it, that affects the community negatively and puts us in a position we don't want to be in. So the reality is we have to stop this before we get to this point.
Well, Van, thank you.
Thank you, Van. We really appreciate it.
All right, guys.
Actually, just one more question. Has working on this issue, has diving into this subject, has it changed the way that you listen to this music at all?
It's changed the way I listen to a lot of stuff. It's changed the way I want to show up to, because some of it's just not worth it. Put it to you that way. People are making forever mistakes at 22, 23. I was a little bit more delicate with life after we did the show.
This episode of Reflector was produced by Andy Mills and me, Matthew Bohl. Special thanks to Prince Paul, Jason Kramer, Bill Donahoe, Camille Foster, Four Eyes, Megan Phelps-Roper, and Van Lathan.
Let me tell you what y'all not gonna do. Y'all not gonna get me on here and make me the police, okay?
That's not our intention.
We're not trying to do that.
I swear to God, everybody listening to this, please listen to the Higher Learning Podcast because I am a liberal. I'm as liberal as they come.
I can attest. It's true. He's very liberal.
For links to Four Eyes music, Van's podcast, and a playlist of all the music in our last 2 episodes, check out the show notes. And if you like this story, please share it with your friends. Give us a rating on Apple or Spotify, or the best way to support the show is by becoming a subscriber. There's a link in our show notes, or you can visit us online at reflector.show. For just a few bucks a month, you can ensure that we can keep telling these stories. Your support is crucial to this tiny 2-man operation, and we really appreciate it. Email your feedback to us at hello@reflector.show. And as always, thank you for listening.